what is the one thing that you could leave and you could walk away when you're ready to retire and say, like,
that's my same question.
I did my time, I left my mark, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. What is that?
1, 2, 1, 2. All right, let's roll. Welcome.
You're listening to the Saddle Up Podcast,
where we discuss everything related to UTRGV Athletics, past or present. We'll catch up with old teammates, friends, and take you down memory lane
with exclusive interviews.
This is the Saddle Up Podcast, the voice of your covered walkway streets.
So dope.
This is gonna be awesome.
Stay tuned for new episodes every week.
From Bronx Village to the Fieldhouse, we'll cover it all.
Hell yeah, dude. Carpe diem.
So saddle up and let's go.
Let's go. Saddle up, partner.
Hey guys, welcome to another great episode of Saddle Up Podcast. And this idea that we had, it's all kind of culminated to having Dr. Guy Bailey on.
We have Dr. Bailey on?
We have Dr. Bailey on.
Pitch me real quick. Make sure I'm not dreaming. Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I have to say, when I was getting ready this morning, I asked Val, I said, how do you dress for a podcast? She said, I don't know, I've never been on one. So I just put on what I had out anyway. So
well, we can get Val on the show if she wants to be like,
she'd be great.
You'd be like, hey,
stylist.
Val, I know some guys. I can get you on the podcast. Don't worry, I'll make a call or two.
If you'll talk about beer, she'll get on that podcast.
Let's do it. We can talk about beer.
This is definitely the podcast for her.
So, Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for joining the show. We have so much to talk about. I know we were talking about off air. Obviously, your love for football, but what I kind of wanted to get to was how exactly did you find yourself from a young man, growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, correct?
Just outside.
Just outside.
Yeah, just north of Montgomery.
To Edinburgh, Texas, to running y'all just got voted #1 educational school in Texas.
That's right, Washington Monthly, and so. It's an interesting story. I never really thought much about going to college growing up. My mother, who died about a month ago at age 97, went to the 8th grade, and so she was really happy that I did go to college. So, but none of my family had gone to college, and actually many of them had not, especially on Mom's side, had not graduated from high school. So his mother didn't, and so. You don't grow up, your ambition growing up is never to be a university president. I want you to go poll people and ask, was that your ambition growing up? No, it really wasn't. And so, I never even thought about stuff. And when I started college, I didn't really think about a career or anything. I mean, I didn't know very much about college. And so, as I said, no one in the family. Just before I started, my father's youngest brother, who was 20 years younger than my dad, had decided to go to college, or thought he was going to go. He was working with the state of Alabama, very smart, and the state wanted to send him to college. And so he sat down with his father, my grandfather, and said, Dad, they want to send me to college. He said, I don't. And my granddad had certainly never encouraged that.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know whether I ought to go or not. He said, when I graduate, I'll be 30 years old. So Granddaddy said, well, Pete, how old will you be if you don't graduate? And so he said, okay, I ought to go then. Yeah. And so that was and so I started in '68 at Alabama, and I didn't know what a fraternity was, by the way, when I started. That's how little I knew. And so they told me, as I finished up my sophomore year, college was very hard for me. I wasn't really well prepared. And so, but finishing up my sophomore year, they said, you got to have a major. What do I major in? So I thought, well, I do really well in history, and I do well in English. So I need to think about that. So I went to class that day, and I had a history and English class. The history class was about 75% boys, 25% girls. the English class was just the opposite, 75% girls, 25%. I became an English major, and that's a true story.
Not honest truth.
Yeah, that's a true story. So,
The life has been weird ever since then. Right?
Yeah.
well, it's just.
Had you majored in history, do you think you'd be the president?
Probably not.
I doubt it. You know, it's kind of interesting. I went to school for a while and thought, well, maybe I can teach. And I thought, if I get a master's degree, I probably can teach at a community college. And that was kind of where I was thinking about, and so did my master's. And one of my professors said, "Why don't you think about going and get a PhD?" And I said, "Well, okay, maybe." So I went on and went to the University of Tennessee. I wanted to go a long way from home.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, for
Knoxville,
me,
right?
Knoxville. I'd never been on an airplane, and the only states I'd been in are Alabama, East Tennessee, North Florida, what we call the Redneck Riviera back at the time. And I'd been in Georgia and over to see some Braves games and things.
Yeah.
So, and so that was kind of my world, and so I did my doctorate, and while I was there, I had I again didn't really know that I had a chance for a really good career, but I got an opportunity to go to a linguistics institute at the University of Hawaii. I'd never been on an airplane, and so my first airplane ride was from Atlanta to Honolulu, and so I went.
That's
quite a
long ride.
That's a trip.
And I went to the linguistics institute that summer, and so when I walked in the classroom, and we all introduced ourselves, and there were people from Stanford and Harvard and Oxford, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Really, Tennessee, I thought, man, I'm probably in the wrong place here, but we'll see what happens. And so, but I did quite well, and I realized about halfway through that course, I believe I'm as smart as these people, all of these other folks. And
I believe it too.
Yeah. Well, I no one had ever told me that, and so by the end of that, I thought, I probably can make a pretty good career out of this. And so, but I always had thought of it in terms of just being a faculty member and just teaching. And so my first faculty position was at Emory. I was there 4 years, then went to A&M, Texas A&M. And as a faculty member, I was there 8 years, and it was a terrific. I had an excellent time. Everything went real well, but pretty soon you think, what am I going to ultimately do?
Yeah.
Right.
Did I do the same?
You feel like
am
you're
I going to
meant
do the
for
same
more,
thing
right?
for the next 30 years or what? And so I thought, well, maybe I'll be a department chair. So I went to Oklahoma State to get department chair. Yeah, I like that. And I thought, ultimately I might even be able to be a dean. So I went to UNLV to be a liberal arts dean.
It's
And so, while we were there, an interesting kind of, my late wife, as you know, I was widowed when I came down here, but my late wife had a stalker in Las Vegas, and she was a faculty member there at UNLV too. So back then the stalking laws were not as good as they are now.
Right.
They're probably not good enough now, but and so we decided we should move. So
What years were you at UNLV?
I was there in the mid-90s.
Okay.
So was this the Running Rebs with?
Running Rebs,
Jerry
they had just
Jerry-
fired Jerry Tarkanian.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I came in as Tarkanian was going out.
Oh.
It was quite an interesting scandal. His wife remained in Las Vegas and was on the city council. And and Las Vegas is a fun place to live. Whatever you had expected earlier in life was different. It's just altogether different. And so
So you leave, you and your late wife leave UNLV,
go to San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Wow.
Okay.
And we went there as Dean of Graduate. I was Dean of Graduate Studies and VP for Research. And after about 10 months, we had some significant turnover there. The provost was dismissed. The president was told he had a year and find another job. And the UT system called me up and said, "Would you be provost?" I said, well,
Sure.
okay.
Let's go.
And so
San Antonio,
that's
we're
how,
in, yeah.
And so I was provost there for 8 years and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I realized at that time that if I wanted to be a university president, I probably could. And so then I went to Missouri, Kansas City as chancellor there, and same thing as president. And my late wife was a Texas Tech grad. Her dad had played football there, and in fact, he was an honorable mention All-American football player in 40 and 41. And
Wow.
so, yeah, that's when you played offense, defense,
Played everything.
and special
Special
teams.
teams, yeah.
And so it was an interesting, I guess they were playing St. Mary's or somebody in 40 or 41 of California. And so they won by 3 touchdowns. He scored all 3 touchdowns on a pass reception as he was an end.
Yeah.
Pass reception. And then he scored on a blocked kick.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And so, because you're on special teams.
Yeah.
And then he intercepted a pass.
It's a pick six.
So, yeah.
Wow, scored
Right,
every
scored
side of the
3
ball.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
every way you could score. It was football was different, and so when the Texas Tech job came open, there was no question that we would go there because
Yeah.
she was very diehard Red Raider,
Yeah.
and so I went there. It was a wonderful time, and and that's kind of how the
Yeah.
career went around. She was very, even when we went to Tech, very sick, and so the Alabama job came open, and so they asked me to go there. And it's my alma mater. So, but by the time we got there, Jan was really quite ill, and so within a couple months, I realized I had 2 choices. I could put her in a nursing home or retire and take care of her. So that's what I did, and and she died about 8, 9 months later, and so I thought, well, I can retire, and but then this opportunity came open. And so,
I'm glad you took it.
well, I knew I was going to retire
I'm
in
very
Texas
glad.
anyway.
I'm very glad you took it.
Well, I
I'm
am
sure
too.
a lot of people are.
I've told people, you never know what kind of turns your life are going to take. That turned out to be the best thing that's ever happened to me in terms of career, personal life. Val and I met.
I would disagree. I think the best thing that happened to you is you took the English class
That's probably right. That's probably true.
instead of the history class.
I
But
wonder,
I
wonder
get
how
what you're
many
saying.
of our students are like that. I don't know what to do, but man, a lot of girls in this
But
class.
if they do, you respect it. You know
Yeah,
exactly
I
where they're
understand.
coming from, yeah.
Everybody talks about disrupting higher education. They do this model and that model. The problem with all of that is they don't understand how they forget how 18, 19-year-olds think
Yes.
and what they're looking at.
Mhm.
And so you hear all the models for educational reform. Nobody ever talks about what you're going to do to help students have an enjoyable, fun experience.
I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because I want to talk about the debt, like as far as
Right.
that's kind of been your mission, right?
Making
To-
it,
to
making it
lower
more,
school.
making
Yeah.
it more accessible
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
more
so
students.
Here's the problem. College is a great tool, and it's going to be great for your whole life, unless you graduate with a lot of debt, and then you're going to be paying off debt the rest of your life.
that
And
trap.
so, that's right. There's a great book called The Debt Trap,
Okay.
and I made all of my VPs read The Debt Trap.
We've heard.
Yeah.
Jonah,
That's right.
Jonah raved about it.
They gave, yeah.
It's a wonderful. It was a book I would have written when I retired, but hey,
They beat you to it.
but what it does, that's right, it talks about how that just stifles your life. And so I was very fortunate. I worked my way through school back when you could.
Yes, sir.
And you can't really do that. The factory jobs like I had, it don't exist. And so our mission really in higher ed, which we forget, is to help kids get the best education possible, but to graduate in a way so that they don't have so much debt.
Yes, sir.
That they spend their entire life paying
Bettering
for.
themselves,
That's
right? It's an
Absolutely.
opportunity to better themselves. Why put them behind the
I need
eight
you
ball,
to
so
talk,
to
I need you
speak?
to talk to my son.
That's right.
Yeah.
I tell our students, we want you to debt finance your home, not your education. And so that's why when you start here, we guarantee your tuition for 4 years and mandatory fees. Mandatory fees are key. In a lot of places, fees are as much as tuition.
Right.
So if you don't do both, you got a problem there. We, we had that $125,000 guarantee.
It started at 75.
Yeah, that's right.
And it
Started at
just started
75.
kept improving.
Maggie Hinojosa, our Dr.
Oh, we love
Hinojosa,
Dr. Maggie.
you
Yeah.
have talked to Maggie. She's
Yes.
our VP, and so I go in there and I said, "Can we bump it up to 80? Can we bump it up to 90?"
That's why you're the boss. You know that? You're
we got
always
to
thinking.
100.
Yeah.
She said, "Look, we're going to do 125.
Don't come
Stay
back
out
in
of my
office."
Hey.
Yeah. So,
Hey, you can't receive if you don't ask.
that's exactly right. So that, but right at last year, if you look at this, is all data from the UT system. 86% of our undergraduates paid no tuition or fees, and so if you can do that, you're making some progress.
Yeah.
So we're
Well,
really pleased.
speaking of, educational progress, great, and kudos. But speaking of progress, let's talk about obviously football and the athletic progress.
Yes, and the village that it takes, because we had Chase on the show, and the one thing, his philosophy
His whole
around
aura.
that it
That's
takes
right.
a village. We want to give you the time to brag about that village
That you've built,
that you've built.
constructed.
Yes.
I will have to say I have the best set of vice presidents I've ever been around. And really, if you, as a president, you can have a vision, but if you don't have people who can implement that vision and who really are smart and can make things happen, and that's the level, the Maggie Hinojoses, the Michael Muellers, the Veronica Gonzalez, all of those people Luis Sias, our provost, John Seigan, our VP for research, those are the people who make it happen. And so you have to, and we've gotten a terrific team in place. And so you talked to some of them, Kelly, Kelly and Miss Sewer, we announced that big gift yesterday.
Yes.
Right? But if you didn't have Kelly,
Congratulations.
you wouldn't get that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We were there. It was
And so-
awesome.
Oh, that was, and
Yes.
without Kelly, stuff like that wouldn't happen. And so all of you have to work together as a team to make it happen. And in planning for football, Chase worked very closely with Maggie, very closely with Kelly, everybody, and all of this is part of your team working together. This really is the best group of people, and I've had some very good, a number of my former vice presidents are university presidents now. In fact, Taylor Amy in San Antonio, Juan Munoz out at California Merced, University of California Merced, Molly Agarwal in Kansas City. So
you've got like the Coach Popovich tree.
well, that's because I've been around a long time. I tell people, if you work until you're old enough, everybody's worked for you.
That doesn't make sense.
But I am very proud of the fact that a lot of them, and there are people here who will do the same thing. I'm just trying to hang on to them as long as possible because they really are what's making it happen. When we have new degree programs, when we start a school of podiatric medicine, that's the team all working together. It requires financial planning. I mean, it costs money to put those things in place. You have to be able to recruit students, recruit faculty. All of those people have to work together to do that. Same thing is true really with athletics. You think the AD is, yes, but it also involves people in the registrar's office. You have to admit students, and you have to, and you have to, you need to fund this. Your VP for advancement is crucial there. So you have to get people enrolled and ensure they're enrolled the right way, so you don't get on NCAA. They're not all that many things you get on NCAA probation for. I mean, the things that, what did Eric Dickerson remember? I don't know.
Yeah,
Remember the
SMU,
name?
yeah.
I said, what we did wasn't wrong after all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They were just ahead of the curve.
Just NIL here. But all of those things you have to, and all throughout the organization, people have to kind of be of the same mind and pull together. And that's what we've really had, especially the last 5 or 6 years, and that's enabled us to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just as an alum, right? We played 96 to 2000. And having a football team was always on the top. You know, it was like, yeah, we're going to get a football team. We're going to get a bigger arena. It was always on the top, right? And then it just never materialized. So then when, you know, just a couple of years ago, when it started to materialize and you start to see, you start to really see some traction, some momentum. And it's just, we drove by the campus today and it was like, whoa. Like,
I know.
it was
And
insane.
there's a lot of excitement. And it's interesting because starting a football program, we're starting two sports actually. Remember, swimming and diving. Now,
Yes.
swimming and
And you
diving.
hired you just recently hired a coach.
And so things are always more complicated than you think. We really couldn't start swimming and diving without that natatorium far, right?
Yes.
And so, because you had no place, you can't just go out to the pool outside and do
I mean, you could, it just wouldn't be.
Would be the
conducive
standard,
to
right?
the-
That's right.
Edinburgh Parks and Rec, yeah.
And so that all takes a lot of planning, and you have to put pieces, you know, everything has to fall in place. We started football. We did a feasibility study, I think, starting in 2017. Bob Vaquero was on the committee, and Mac Brown and Oliver Luck helped us. They helped us do the planning. And so as we got through the study, there were certain things that I thought had to happen before we could really begin to implement this. And so when we hired Chase in August of 2019, we made him a job offer on his birthday, by the way. So I thought that was
what
great.
a gift.
Yeah, I think it's August 1st, and we called him up.
That's a great gift.
Yeah, happy birthday, we got a job.
Yeah.
So I thought Chase was really the right guy to lead this. He has the personal skills. If you listen to Chase talk or you watch him interact with people, he's a person who can build bridges, bring people together. And to make this be successful, people across the valley had to support this. This couldn't be
Correct.
Edinburgh's football team. It couldn't be the Upper Valley's football
Yeah,
team. The
it's got
Brownsville
to be
students had to
entire-
be
everything you
fully
see here,
engaged. That's
yeah.
right. You had to people have buy-in from FAR. You had to buy-in from Harlingen, Weslaco. And so I thought Chase is the kind of guy who can make this happen. And we had built a lot of financial strength in the institution by then. We had, and also thought Chase would be a good fundraiser.
Yeah.
You have to raise some money to make this happen. And so, so all of that, I was very optimistic. And as we started into 2020, I was just, I thought, man, this is gonna, we can get this.
You got the right guy.
And then
We had-
COVID.
Oh gosh, talk to us about that.
Yeah.
COVID.
How did that?
So-
How did that
stop
change
operating?
everything?
Well, it pushed everything back. I mean,
Yeah.
things that we had planned to do in the institution were set back about a couple of years at least. And so the implementation of football and everything was set back a couple. And remember, we didn't have anybody on campus. Students weren't coming to campus for a couple of years where most of our classes were online. And many of our faculty and staff were, and people that weren't going to events. So when COVID ended and Val and I began to gradually resume the schedules we had, we looked at each other and said, what's happened? Well, COVID's ended. We're just back to where we were.
Back to where we were at.
Yeah, we forgot about how much, I mean, you don't sit home at night and watch all of the shows on TV.
Yeah.
Binge
So you-
watch an entire
Yeah.
series.
What were you, just out of curiosity, what were you guys binge watching during COVID?
Well,
Please don't say Love is Blind.
no, here's what
No.
we did. We we picked like actors.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Actresses that we liked, and we and so I'm a big Robert Duvall fan, so we watch all the Robert Duvall movies,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
And we both like westerns, and so we watched Lonesome Dove start to finish, right?
Yeah,
And so the one that's in Wyoming right now, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone's
a good one now.
We
Great
watched
one.
that. We'd all the Tommy Lee Jones movies.
Tommy Lee
we
Jones,
we just pick somebody we liked and watch them all. And so, Robert Duvall goes all the way back To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes, he does.
And
I believe he was in, what was it, The Godfather too, right?
yes, he was in
Yes, he
Godfather.
was.
Yeah, he was one of the
But you know what
brothers,
his
yeah.
favorite movie was? it's a movie, and it did not win an Academy Award, but it came very close. Tender Mercies. It goes back to 1983 or 84.
I need to find that.
You need to find it. It's about it is one of the best movies you'll ever see. It's my favorite movie, actually, and it's about a country singer who's on the down and outs and becomes an alcoholic. It's about his recovery, basically, and set in Texas, and some of the most beautiful scenery. Robert Duvall does all the singing in the movie.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's one you can check out. It's
Tender Mercies.
Everybody watching this show, that's the show, that's the movie.
Now, I just found out walking from your office when we met, off camera, that you still are a professor.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's
So
true.
you teach how many classes?
Well, I'll teach a class in higher ed finance right
Okay.
now. And I occasionally, every once in a while, will teach a linguistics class in something like history of the English language or structure of English. And so I haven't taught one of those in a while, but I'm currently teaching a higher ed finance.
Love that.
Yeah, and
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
well, if you think about it, how the success of a university has everything to do with your finance.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, how do you build financial strength? How do you create the resources to do what you need to do without breaking the backs of your students? And so that's really why I teach that course. I'm interested in getting out information about the financial model we've created. Really the best thing we've done here. I love football, I love the School of Medicine, School of Podiatric Medicine, I love all that. But it's the financial model.
We may have to sit in and audit that class.
Yeah.
We may have to
You would enjoy parts of it at least. Parts of it you might not like all that much. It depends how much you want to get into the Texas state funding formula and all that.
If you want to start a school of podcasting, I mean, you got.
We're here.
Well, this is my
Dr.
first
Bailey.
podcast, by the way.
Is it?
Yes, I'd never done a podcast before.
Well, we truly feel special now.
We
'cause
do.
We have no
It's
idea.
It's a brand new experience for me, and
Are you enjoying it?
I am. The only other, I told somebody in end of 2019, and said, I've seen everything that in higher education that could happen. I had not. I'd never seen a pandemic.
Pandemic
I'm
or a
always,
podcast.
as long as it's not a pandemic, I'm always interested in new experiences. Podcast is great.
Yeah. To piggyback off of what Matt asked about, the shows that you watched and your time. I know you're a busy man. There's
Right.
a lot on your plate, but what are your favorite hobbies? What does Dr. Bailey like doing when he has that little
When
window
it's just
of
you and
time?
Val, and y'all just have a day off, or
Yeah.
Well, of course, a lot of our spare time is spent with 11 grandchildren.
That'll do it. Yeah.
So far, there are more, we think, on the way.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Yeah, I won't know that I'm past my prime when I can't remember names and birthdays. So far, I got them all down. We like the outdoors a lot. Hunt, fish, hike, all of those things we like to do. Val and her brothers own several ranches, love to go to the ranches. And it's interesting being able to take our little grandsons on their first fishing trips,
that's amazing.
teaching them to shoot, teaching them to hunt.
Spending time with family.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's basically what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We place on the beach here we go to.
Yeah.
And, again, it's just fun to go there. And I had a group of linguists down for a weekend. We did a little workshop in February. They're from all over the world: Germany, Belgium, Canada, and so they'd never heard of South Padre Island. They'd never heard of this part of the country, and then when they started researching it, they just read about all the border issues, and I had to assure them, no.
Of course, yeah.
But they absolutely loved it. They fell in love with it. Of course, they were coming from like Montreal, Canada, the first weekend in February. You'd fall in love with it too, wouldn't you? I mean,
The weather, yeah.
Yeah, the weather.
but I mean, there are wonderful places to eat here all throughout the valley. We forget the food scene in the valley is very good. So
It's like
all
no
the way
other place
from
in the world.
That's right. And so they had a wonderful time. We like to get outdoors and do those kinds of things. And so we for Val's birthday last year, we went fly fishing and went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, fly fishing. And really, we got married during COVID. We've been dating for a number of years, but we had to wait till we were looking for a year when none of our children were getting married.
Yeah.
They all got married between 2016 and 19, except for one. And so when 2020, we planned our wedding. And so we got married in the middle of COVID. What do you do on a honeymoon? COVID? You go fly fishing, right?
You need to, yeah. That's absolutely.
I'm glad y'all didn't wait for the Edinburgh courthouse to open.
Oh, that's well. Hey, fortunately, none of our construction has been that much.
Yeah,
of an
that's pretty
issue.
evident.
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious. Y'all are doing a great job. We want to, and this is kind of a fun question, Dr. Bailey. You've done awesome, the awesome things you're doing for UTRGV, right? You never wanted to, but that wasn't you mentioned that wasn't your career path from the very beginning, right? It's kind of a two-part question. If there's a child out there, there's somebody aspiring to be, what does a typical day for a university president look like, right? And the second part to that question, would you ever run for the president of the United States?
I'm not old enough to run for president of the United States.
No, you're not, sir.
Hey,
You don't look at Dale
ask me
with
when I
her.
get older. Did you ever think for president, you'd vote for two guys that old?
Yeah, never in my dreams,
No,
never in my
never.
wildest dreams did I think of that.
Yeah.
Never.
When Dwight Eisenhower stepped down, he must have been in his mid-60s or something. He was not. Everybody thought he was really old.
Yeah.
And now he might not have been old enough to run now.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's remarkable. But
Yeah, you don't meet the criteria.
the interesting thing about a day in the life of a president,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you think is going to happen that day
Doesn't.
isn't. I mean, something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
So you need to be flexible, and you need to, in a day, you might deal, and Val talks to me, and she said, it's not that just that you're busy, it's the variety of different things you deal with. So you might deal with an issue of course availability. I mean, we got all these kids lined up to take psychology, and we don't have anybody to teach psychology. You might deal with a donor who's unhappy about some particular thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Or two knuckleheads that do a podcast.
Hey, that's okay. A lot of what you do is involved with external work in the communities. I would say most of my time is spent dealing with our local communities, with donors, with our local elected officials, senators. We have wonderful state senators from down here. Both of them are terrific. We have good representatives. We have good local leadership.
Yeah.
Most of our mayors are excellent, great to deal with. But a lot of that, a lot of what you're dealing with is strategic things. So if you're going to have a new school of podiatric medicine, I mean, strategically, how do you bring resources together to do that? So most of what you're dealing with is at a strategic level,
It's high level.
and a lot of it is very externally focused. At the same time, you do have to deal with, if a problem gets to you, you know it's really bad.
You know
That's
it's
right.
really bad.
And so,
yeah.
and you have some of those. Think of it this way. We'll probably have 32,000 students this fall, and I don't know, employees across the valley of all types, 60 counting faculty, staff, student workers, 6,500 or so. That's a city.
It is.
And so, if you think about everything that can happen in a city that size,
That's
that's what you got.
Yeah.
And so, you might one day have an issue with something happening in a dorm or something happening on campus. It's just a wide range of things. That makes the job interesting, but you have to balance a lot of balls at one time. And so athletics is always if you're a university president, you spend a lot of time on that. When I was president at Texas Tech, I spent an inordinate amount of time because the Big 12 was falling apart. I was there in 2008, 2012, and so
That's when they lost like Colorado and.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I was on the executive committee of the the Big 12 board, and I was on the NCAA board at the time as well. And so I spent a lot of time trying to hold that conference together, piece that conference together, and we put together at that time the ESPN deal, the TV deal. And so, and the head of ESPN at the time had been an English major too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He chose English, not
That's
history.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And he came up through the media part of it. So, but so you'll, and then you also spend a lot of time if you have a school of medicine with healthcare and health issues.
Right.
And those are always interesting and challenging. And so, but that's what makes the job fun. You never do the same thing. Val's telling me I sell beer every day. That's right. That's what we do. And so but so you're never in a position where you're doing just one thing, and so that makes it a lot of fun.
Well, we're running close to time, and we know you're busy. I have one question. I'm sure G can think of his last one, but the one question I have is, what do you want to leave as a legacy under your presidency? Like, what is the one thing that you could leave and you could walk away when you're ready to retire and say, like,
that's my same question.
I did my time, I left my mark, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished.
Right.
What is that?
I want kids who are in the Valley here to think, we have a university here in the Valley that's the equal of anything in this state.
Agreed.
I can get anything I want right here, including a rich campus life. I can go to football games, I can tailgate, I can live on campus. We're building campus housing right now. I can do anything. I can get a medical degree here. I can get a doctorate in engineering here. I can do anything I can do anywhere else right here in my hometown, my home region, the Rio Grande Valley. So if you can do that, if hey, you can't do any better anywhere else, then I'm satisfied.
Do it here at home.
That's right. Do it here at
I
home.
love that.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
Yeah.
My last question, what's your favorite podcast?
Oh, this one. This one.
Dr. Bailey.
Dr. Bailey,
you're
I'm
the
going to
best.
start listening to all your podcasts.
Please do. Start with Dr. Maggie's episode. She's gotten over 600 views.
Is that right? Well,
Yeah.
she's very good, so I'm not at all surprised.
She is great.
Appreciate
Well,
your
thank
time,
you.
taking
Thank you.
the time to really, talk to us
It's
about
great
your
fun
journey.
to talk to you, and so keep up the good work.
We
And,
try. We
yeah,
try.
how do you become a podcaster, by the way? I didn't ask you that. Is there a course that
You know how
take
you were
on
dealing
there?
with how
During
you were
COVID.
dealing with COVID?
Yeah.
That's how we dealt with
That's
it.
how we dealt with it.
Oh, just that makes sense.
We just got on Zoom calls and we just started, talking to our friends, and then 2 o'clock,
Wow.
3 o'clock in the morning would approach, right? And it would just be Matt and I.
And we
Everybody else would kind of fall off the Zoom, and we're like, man, this would be really cool if we started a podcast one day.
So then we started recording.
Yeah.
And then we've been best friends since the
Since
late
we met in
90s,
college,
right?
yeah.
And so then it was like, hey, you know a lot of people, I know a lot of people. Why don't we just start talking about the university?
Well, and we were truly excited about football, about the transition, the transition
Yeah.
from you. I was actually working at UTBTSC when the year of we transitioned to UTRGV.
Wow.
So I was like right there in the mix, in Brownsville.
Oh, yeah. So you knew it all.
I knew
Yeah.
it, when it was happening. So as it just continued happening, I was talking to Matt. I said, Matt, there's some really great things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get involved because we're alumni, number one, and number two, we believe in it, and we want to kind of,
We believe in you.
we
Oh,
want,
well,
yes,
thank you.
we
I
believe in
believe
you
in
all.
it. It's a big enterprise. I'm just very fortunate to be part of it. I told somebody once, I never thought that the best years of my life would come after I turned 63 years old.
It's awesome.
It is true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That
I
is
have
great.
one last question.
Oh, wow.
Where,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, since we have you
Yeah.
right now and talking and we're recording, so that way it's on tape. Who do we need to talk to about getting a bronze statue
See, wait,
outside
Dr.
of the
Bailey,
communications department?
Dr. Bailey, you
For
don't
us
have
two?
you don't have to answer this. You don't have to answer this, but I was afraid that he was going to ask it.
Well, I was gonna say, right outside the Alabama football stadium is a statue of all the coaches who won national championships. We'll find out who made those statues and how they got there, and then we'll go from there.
We'll go from there.
So it's not a no.
It's
Not a no.
All right.
All he did was delegate.
Congratulations,
He's gonna
my
send
friend.
it down the
Well,
line. And
Jonah, work on that, buddy.
Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you,
the show.
thank you.
Until next week, guys. V's up.
V's up.
Like we weren't supposed to come up with something this clean. Like something happened.